Everyone says delete social media and your attention comes back. Your focus sharpens and your life will become better. It doesn't. At least not in the way people usually think. I deleted most of my social media a few months ago, and I was still reaching for my phone almost as much as before. So, if the apps were the reason that I was always on my phone, then why was I still using it so much even after removing them? That's when I realized that I have been thinking about this problem at the wrong level. So if you've tried all that and you still feel foggy, distracted, and just weirdly stuck, then this video is for you. So this is how I'm going to break it down to you in this video. There's going to be 4 layers, and each layer is going to touch on something specific that eventually leads us to the answer on what needs to change. First, we're going to talk about why deleting the apps didn't solve the problem and why the same pull just moved somewhere else. Second, we're then going to look into what kind of moments actually triggered the reach. Third, we're then going to investigate why healthier replacements also didn't fix the problem. And finally, I'm going to tell you what has to change in the pattern if you want to get your attention back. Quick definition, because this is the whole point of the video and also this channel. A symptom is a thing that you can see on the surface. A mechanism is the thing underneath it that's actually driving the symptom. In my case, the symptom was obvious. My attention felt fractured and I was reaching for my phone to almost any quiet moment. Let's start with layer 1. So 6 months ago, I deleted Instagram and most of my other social media as well. Not because I was doing some trendy dopamine detox, but because I genuinely thought that was the problem. I also felt like I didn't need it anymore. The doom scrolling, the comparing, the checking the phone every 5 minutes even though there was nothing on there, I was just done with it. And yes, the first few days were weird. My thumb still kept tapping the exact same spot where Instagram used to be, like it was muscle memory. I also suddenly had all this free time back and I didn't know what to do with it, to be very honest. But after a few days, that part settled, the noise became much more quieter, and honestly, I actually felt really good. Except for one problem. This was my screen time from last month, on a phone with barely any social media left. I was still reaching for my phone just as much as I did before, just not for anything specific. The apps were gone, but the reflex of me reaching for my phone still stayed, which I didn't understand at first, but that was my first takeaway, because if I removed the apps and the reflex stayed, the social media apps were clearly never the mechanism. They were just one outlet. And once I saw that, the next thing became super obvious. So the pull or the reflex that I was just talking about didn't disappear, it just moved. So Instagram became Netflix, Netflix became Safari, Safari became me reading about random things online that I don't even care about. At one point, I even caught myself scrolling through my settings menu. Yes, the settings menu. Like my Bluetooth menu was now my entertainment. And this exposed another thing to me, right? Because it was not about one specific app. Because if I remove Instagram and the same reflex or the pull just attaches itself to another outlet, and that outlet being YouTube, Safari, or even my settings app apparently, then clearly the app, the social media apps, or any app for the matter, was not the main problem. And this tells us that another layer beneath all of this that we must look into. So layer 1 told me that there was this entire pull reflex thing that was going on, that even though I delete the apps, I still have the reflex, and the reflex just shifts from Instagram to YouTube to Safari to Netflix to even my settings app. So then that naturally led me to the next question. If it really wasn't about a specific app, then when does this exactly kick in? Why now, and why not during focused work or when I'm busy? Instead of looking into what apps am I going towards, I started paying attention to the moment right before when I actually reached for my phone. The more I watched it, the more specific it got. My phone was giving me something to do the second a moment stopped feeling engaging enough on its own. So it was not just moments where I felt bored, it was moments where I felt slightly empty, a little awkward maybe, slightly too quiet, and just slightly unfinished. So it was moments like, if I was waiting for food, check something. If I was standing in an elevator, open something. If I was going for a walk, listen to some music. If I was brushing my teeth, put a video on. I realized that I don't just use my phone for just entertainment or even the practical stuff. It had quietly become my default tool for any moment that felt too unfinished, a little awkward, and just not stimulating enough. In other words, it gave me a quick way out of that emptiness of the moment. And that is a very different problem. Because now, all of this just told me that it was not just about liking stimulation. It was about the fact that my phone had become this default escape tool just because it was super frictionless and always available. And this is the part I really want you to notice in your life as well. If your phone keeps showing up in those tiny in-between moments, there's a good chance that the thing on the screen is not the reason why you're actually reaching for it. At least a part of what may be pulling you is the fact that the moment itself feels a little too empty or a little too unstimulating, and your phone just gives you an easy way out. So now, putting layer 1 and layer 2 together, it gave me this big, uncomfortable insight. My phone had become my escape from ordinary calm. Then I was like, okay, I know this is bad, so I need to fix this ASAP. So the next plan I had was, I'm going to replace this habit with something healthier, because obviously that's going to fix it, right? So I tried reading before bed, and that lasted a grand total of 4 days. Not because I hate reading or the book was bad, but because I realized that reading was asking my brain to work with a completely different pace than what I was used to. My phone or our phones have trained us to expect speed, novelty, constant inputs, and quick hits. So after years of that, the bar had moved. My threshold for what felt engaging enough had quietly gone up without even me realizing. So now anything that's low stimulation falls below the bar. So when people say just replace the bad habits with good ones, of course it sounds logical, but it falls for the same reason my reading streak died. If your brain has adapted to fast, fragmented stimulation, then introducing something slower like reading, journaling, or just even sitting there can suddenly feel weirdly flat, slow, or hard to stay with. This is not because those things do not work or you're lazy. This is because your baseline has changed and the threshold now is too high. So how can reading or any of these habits ever compete with that sort of threshold? So now you know, if you've ever tried to replace scrolling with a better habit and you've bounced off of it just a couple days later, this is exactly the reason why this happened. So the real problem to solve isn't to find better alternatives, better replacements, or delete more stuff. It's lowering the threshold so ordinary moments stop feeling so intolerable. That's the mechanism. Understand this and everything changes. And once I saw the mechanism so clearly, the only question remaining was the one that actually mattered. If deleting the apps is not enough and replacing them with better habits is also not going to fix it, then what actually has to change if you want your attention back and for your life to feel better? The answer does not lie in deleting more apps or implementing another perfect routine that only lasts a few days. The thing that has to change is the moment right before the reach. Not after the phone is already open, not after you've already scrolled for 10 minutes. The answer lies right there in that tiny gap where the moment feels a little too quiet, too empty, too awkward, too unfinished, and your brain goes, check something, open something, fill this moment. That is the moment you have to work with. Let me show you the simplest way I've found to do this, and it's by using 3 steps. We're gonna call this catch it, name it, and stay for one tiny unit. Let me explain. We're first gonna catch it. What does this mean? We're just gonna notice the reflex before the phone is open. The tiny check something feeling, that's what you're gonna focus on. So then we're gonna name it. We're just gonna give a label to what the moment currently is. So if that means if you're waiting, you're just gonna say, I'm waiting. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm uncomfortable. I'm standing in an elevator. I want out of this moment. Then, the best part, and the part that actually changes things. All you have to do is just stay for one tiny unit. You decide what the tiny unit is, or 1 rep, whatever you want to call it. And the key here is to make it embarrassingly simple so resistance is 0. So for example, it would look like if you're brushing your teeth, just finish one side of your mouth before you check your phone. If you're waiting for your food, just wait until the waiter comes or the food arrives. If you're walking somewhere, just stay with the walk until the next corner, building, or the next crossing. You decide. After that one tiny unit that you have decided, then you can grab the phone if you still want. There's no shame, no force, no guilt associated with this. The win is the rep itself. Every single time you do this, even if that means you taking one deep breath before you reach for your phone, you teach your brain that the gap does not need to be filled immediately. And this repetition will compound. And this is exactly how the threshold will start to come down again. It's not an overnight fix, but the more you do it, the better chance you have to lowering it to the baseline again. You don't hope deletion or putting your phone on a grayscale mode or screen time limits, whatever fixes that's currently out there, magically will fix everything. You're gonna stop the automatic escape right where it starts, one tiny rep at a time. And this is how you get your attention back. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Deleting the apps is not the same thing as fixing the mechanism. Most of the time you're reaching for your phone, you're probably not reaching for the content or what's on the screen. You're reaching to escape those moments that feel flat. And to fix that, you need to interrupt the pattern right before you reach for the phone. Your brain is highly adaptable. So if once it adapted itself to a higher threshold, it can now adapt itself back to a lower baseline with one tiny unit at a time. And that brings us to the end of the video. If this gave you a different way of looking at your phone habits, then that's exactly what I wanted this video to do. So I would love to know which part of this video resonated the most with you. Make sure to leave them in the comments below. If you're new here, hi, I'm Shui. Thank you so much for being here. I make videos about thinking about your thinking. So not self-help, not motivation, just looking past the surface problem and into what's actually driving it. So if you like videos like that, please make sure to subscribe because I have more videos coming soon. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here and I'll see you in the next video.